An insider has revealed the New York Islanders' master plan to replace Hall of Fame general manager and president Lou Lamoriello. This is obviously a massive decision the New York Islanders ownership team has to make, and based on what we're hearing, they're going to take a logical and structured approach to this decision, which is exactly what Islander fans want to hear. We're going to break this down in this episode of Islanders Digest, but before we do that, if you're an Islander fan and you're not already, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want more Islanders content, more Islanders updates, and what's going to be an incredibly busy offseason. This is the channel for you, so be sure to subscribe. It really helps us out. Now let's get right into talking about what the Islanders are going to be doing when it comes to choosing the next general manager of the franchise, or should I say the next president of the franchise. Chris Bratta on Twitter has tweeted out that word is Islanders owners are focused on hiring a president of hockey operations first. The president would hire a GM and then they would decide on a coach. And this is very encouraging to hear because it shows that the Islanders ownership team has a structured approach to all this. First of all, originally when they were kind of talking about what they were looking at for, it was not really certain whether they were looking for a GM or a president, or perhaps they're considering hiring both at the same time, which definitely wouldn't be the right decision because when you're hiring a president, you want them to be the head of the organization and then for them to fill out the rest of the staff. That is what Lou Lamoriello was, or at least what he was supposed to be. Perhaps one of the biggest mistakes Lou Lamoriello made as the president of the New York Islanders, who named himself general manager as well, is he didn't surround himself with a team, like a team of fellow hockey minds to really make decisions together. Lou Lamoriello sort of ruled the Islanders like a king, and while it worked at times, it also led for several mistakes, and when Lou Lamoriello was wrong on something, there was really nobody to tell him that, because the assistant GM of the New York Islanders, while Lou Lamoriello was the GM of the Islanders, was his son, Chris Lamoriello. There really were not that many other hockey minds in this organization. In terms of the staff making decisions, it was pretty much whatever Lou Lamoriello says goes. And sure, that is the case with other presidents, but they have staffs that they bounce ideas off of, and they really value for feedback. And it seems like this is what the Islanders owners want, and they don't want to be put in another situation where there is one person calling all the shots. And more importantly, it is very encouraging that they're going to let the president of hockey operations pick this GM, or at least help them pick the GM of the team if that is the route they go. Because one of the worst things they could have got done is hire the two positions on their own without really having the president be a part of the decision for the GM, and then having those two clash heads. That could have been an absolute disaster. And when they were first talking about what John Collins would be doing for the Islanders, that was kind of what it sounded like. In addition, with this talk of it being the owners, it does sound like Ledecky and Malkin will also have their voices heard when it comes to choosing the next general manager of the Islanders, or I should say president of the Islanders. It seems like they'll be picking a president, and then as Chris Bratta goes on to explain, that president will then have the choice to either hire another general manager or name themselves the general manager of the Islanders. But one thing is made clear. It is expected if somebody is the president of the Islanders and they do make themselves general manager, that they're also going to bring aboard a team of one or several assistant GMs, which is exactly what you want to see. The Islanders have a huge opportunity, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, to bring in a couple hockey minds here, because this is really one of the only opportunities in the NHL to get in with a new regime and really have your voice heard. And as a result, it's going to be really attractive for a lot of different candidates. As we've already been talking about, so many different candidates have already expressed interest in this job. And now that there is a structure in what the decisions are going to be made, there is a lot to be encouraged about by Islanders fans. First of all, once they hire a president of hockey operations, the team can once again start moving forward. That president can make moves if need be, start deciding what contracts need to be signed. Even if this president does look for a GM, things can start to get moving. And in addition, the structure where they will first start with a president, then go for the general manager, and then have that general manager decide on a coach. It's just a very ordered structure. As some Islander fans have talked about, it gives a separation of church and state where Islander fans have felt desperately is needed for this franchise, especially after what Lou Lamoriello did, simply not bringing in other hockey minds to challenge him. And this is definitely a good direction for the Islanders to go, and they're going to have plenty of choices when it comes to both the president and the general manager. Again, coming to a new regime, as we're going to talk about a little bit, it leaves a lot of opportunity. One name that we have talked about who will no longer be in consideration for this role is Rob Blake from the LA Kings. The LA Kings, as we know, got eliminated by the Oilers yet again in the first round. That's now 4 times in a row, which is honestly absolutely embarrassing to lose to the same team 4 years in a row, especially this year where the Oilers have so many injuries and the Kings had such a better team. Yes, Blake did build that team, but you had a feeling that he was going to get let go after really being with the franchise for 8 years. But no, he is staying with the organization. And this is key for the New York Islanders because with the Kings not going to have a general manager opening, as many people suspected they would if they got eliminated in the first round, it now seems pretty clear that the Islanders are going to be the only team that has an opening in general manager, because at this point, we would have heard something from these other teams if that was going to be the case. The one team we're probably still waiting on is the Buffalo Sabres, which at this point, I honestly have no idea what they are doing. It makes no sense at all for them to keep Adams, but that seems like what they're going to be doing, or perhaps they're going to be giving him a promotion for him to pick another GM. Again, if you had to pick what role to work on a new regime with the Islanders or go to the Sabres to work under Adams, I think it's pretty clear what job will be more desirable. And what that means is the Islanders are really going to have, with this structure that they are now choosing their next candidate for, really an abundance of candidates to choose from, especially now that we know the Kings will not be looking for a new GM or president. They're going to be sticking with their leadership group. The Islanders are going to have a ton of options. They would have had a ton of options before, but there would have been competition with the Kings, especially a team like that already has a roster that is competitive. Yes, they got eliminated in the first round a couple times, but this is really a team that should have gone farther this season. It would have been a very desirable job. Now that it is no longer on the case, the Islanders really have the only job. And yes, there are plenty of people who are going to want it. Now, this is a list from HockeyRumors.com, and frankly, it is not the best list, honestly, when it comes to the different options for the Islanders to pick from GM, but it just shows the abundance of names. And in reality, especially if the Islanders go the president route, which sounds more and more like that is what they're going to do. It sounds like at first they were unsure what they were going to do in terms of just hiring another GM that was going to also bring in assistant GMs, or rather they wanted to go with the president. It really does sound like they want to go with a president now, and that's really going to help you bring in realistically 2 of these highly touted names. Now, this list is not the best. There's a list that's a little better we have really quickly, but some of the names on this, I mean, Mark Bergevin, even though he has his flaws, and most of the names on this list will either be unproven or have flaws, which is why it's even more encouraging that the Islanders are likely going to have a situation where at least 2 of these names are coming in, and there's going to be more of a committee when it comes to making Islanders decisions in the future, as opposed to when Lou Lamoriello was making decisions all by himself. And that alone is really encouraging for Islander fans. But just looking at these candidates, Mark Bergevin, Jeff Gordon, Jarmo Kepalainen, some of these candidates on this list are not realistically candidates. George McPhee is not leaving the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't even know why he's on this list. Doug Armstrong is also not leaving the Blues. Don't know why he's on this list. But Shanahan is not leaving the Maple Leafs. I think there was a chance if they would have gotten eliminated in the first round again this year. They moved on. I think it's safe to say that Shanahan will be the president of the Leafs again. But that presidential structure is going to provide so many options for the Islanders to really bring in multiple hockey candidates who, again, are going to have the chance to really put their stamp on a organization where there's going to be a clean canvas. And in addition, there is going to be a lot to do. It's not like you're going to be the president of hockey operations and you're just going to keep going with what the old regime had. This system with Lou Lamoriello and Chris Lamoriello with the AHL system of the Islanders was not working. There's going to be extensive work to be done. In reality, much of the scouting staff needs to be overhauled. The entire AHL coaching staff, there is plenty of work to be done with the New York Islanders. And this idea of having a president really focus on building back up the hockey operations, while a GM really focuses on retooling or rebuilding this team with some other qualified assistant GMs, is really encouraging, especially if it's a situation where a president can bring in assistant GM such as Matthew Darsh or Scott White. Now, assistant GMs who you really could only get if you're promoting them to GM. This president GM structure is really encouraging for the Islanders in a system where for a long time the Islanders, even before Lou Lamoriello, Garth Snow also ruled kind of just doing everything on his own. And I think ownership of the Islanders is really seeing it is time for change in this organization, and the structure they're currently looking for in terms of this GM hunt and president hunt is very encouraging, at least for me. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this. Do you want to see the Islanders bring in a president and a GM? And if so, who do you want to see them bring in? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. This is Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.